All right, can you hear me okay? So this is the next stage of your final paper, and this is where you tell me how you are going to collect data for the study that you are proposing. Remember once again that in this project you aren't actually supposed to collect data this semester, so you don't have to hand out a survey to people or conduct interviews or experiments. You just have to plan it. So this next section really is going to be written in future tense. You're going to tell me, this is how I plan to do this study. This is what the methods section is about. And on the D2L website, I posted instructions. Remember the big file that has all the parts of the final paper described, and it's a PDF document. There is a section devoted to this part. This is part 3. And I'm going to also post this video that I'm making right now of what I'm talking about and what's showing up on the screen, so you guys have something else to refer to. And there are also sample methods section posted for you guys to look at, both a qualitative one and a quantitative one. So how many of you, hopefully everybody in the room knows which research design or research method I suggested for your study. Did you get my feedback? Raise your hand. And if anybody didn't, let me know. But this is, based on that feedback, I suggested to you to do either block 2 or block 3. So the final paper, I'm going to give you an extra week for this part. Originally, I think it was due on the 6th or 7th. We're going to push it back to Wednesday, April 14th. And it's not a long section. The literature review section was long. This is short. So it shouldn't take you a long time to write. The point value of this one is 50 points. And remember that if you turn it in late, every day cuts 10 points, or 10%, I'm sorry, 10% off the grade from it. So make sure you turn it in on time. Of course, as usual with everything, 11:59 p.m. is your due date. Please don't wait until the last moment, because that's where all these mishaps happen. I suggested a research design, but if for some reason you decide, okay, so Professor Kopacz suggested survey, but I really would like to do an interview. I hate this idea of doing a survey. I just did the surveys unit. I hated it. I want to do something else. No problem. Just let me know that you want to change your method, and I just want to make sure that we know what you're doing and you're clear about how to write up that method. Go ahead. 14th is at Thursday. So I think I meant the 13th. Yes, so the 3rd. Let me actually change it right here. Thank you so much. Okay. So the 13th, a week after the original due date. I'm just going to give you guys an extra week. And like I said, there are samples posted under the content/assignments section. It's just one file. I think it's called sample methods sections. It's the same place where you have the instructions and all my videos for the final paper posted. And so you can refer to that sample to see what it's like. It's a very simple thing to write, as you will see. Just have to include the right information, and I'm going to explain right now what information to include. So what you're going to hand in actually are going to be 2 things, but they're going to be in one document. First, you're going to write up the actual methods section write-up. And that's the part that you write in paragraphs. And that section should contain, actually I'll tell you what it contains in just a moment. So the method section is one, but also in the same file I want you to include the appendix. And the appendix should contain any materials that you are going to use for your study. So if you are planning a survey project, then include your questionnaire. You're going to have to actually write a questionnaire and include it, using everything you have learned from the survey class, using those principles. If you are planning interviews, then you need to create an interview protocol, which essentially is the list of questions that you're going to ask. And again, refer to the interviewing class for the types of questions that you can ask and the types of protocol that you can use. There are 3 types, remember, of interviewing protocols. Also, if you are thinking of either conducting focus groups with people or an experiment, whatever we call them stimuli materials you're going to use. For example, sometimes people do focus groups to see if a given advertisement or commercial is effective. And some of you may end up doing a study like this. Then include either the scan or whatever, just an image of the advertisement that you would like to test. If you're looking, for example, at the effects of advertising, or if you would, as part of your study, show people a video clip, then show me an example of what kind of video clip you would include. Of course, because you're writing this in a document, all you can really include is caption from the video, but that's fine. So if you're going to, whatever stimuli, whatever things you're going to show to people as part of your study, you should include that in this appendix section. Do you have a question? Okay. Does that make sense, guys? Okay. And in a moment, I'll actually show you what I mean by that in just a second. But going back to the methods section, so what actually you should write about. So depending on which research methods you are using, I'm going to start with quantitative research methods. So this is block 2, folks. That's for you. In your methods section, you should write about the following things. First, tell me, this is just anybody who is going to be using surveys, experiments, or content analysis. So first thing you tell me is which method you picked. Which one of these did you pick? So simply, this study will involve a content analysis of television commercials, for instance. Next, you need to tell me about your sample. Most of you are designing studies that involve people, human participants. So in this section, you tell me who will be your population of interest, and then let's say college students, and then how are you going to pick your sample. So this section is just like the last question on exam 1. You need to tell me how you are going to go about sampling your participants. So are you going to use a probability sampling method, a non-probability sampling method, and then which method, and step by step, how are you going to sample people for this study? That making sense? So that's the sample section. Next, again, if you are going to be designing a quantitative study, you need to tell me what variables you will be measuring and how you're going to measure those variables. So for example, if you are looking at the relationship between reading fashion magazines and distortions of body image in college women, you need to measure the variable of magazine exposure. How are you going to measure magazine exposure? So you need to tell me, I'm going to ask a series of questions concerning how frequently women read different magazines. I will ask about the following magazines: Cosmopolitan, Vanity Fair, Harper's Bazaar, People's Magazine, and so on and so forth. And for each magazine, I'm going to ask the participants to tell me how frequently they read it. So that's what I mean by variables. The variable is going to be exposure to fashion magazines, and measures, how you are going to operationalize this variable, how are you going to measure it. Then another example is if you're going to measure distortions of body image. So distortion of body image is your variable. How are you going to measure this? And again, if you're doing a survey, it's going to be through a list of questions, and these questions are going to be asking about how women perceive their bodies. Now, the actual questions should be included as part of your appendix. Making sense? All right. So that's what you include for your, and the last thing is procedures of data collection. So for instance, you need to tell me if you're doing this as a survey, are you going to administer the survey online, or is it going to be a pencil and paper survey, or is it going to be conducted as an interview face-to-face where you administer the questions? If it's going to be an experiment, then you need to walk me through the steps of that experiment. What's going to happen when the participants come into your location? Somebody had this great idea of studying people's behavior in the street when they are approached by strangers. So your location would be the street, but you need to tell me about the whole setup. What are you going to do? How are you going to approach people? What are you going to say to the people in the experimental condition? What are you going to say to the people in the control condition? What are you going to tell them at the end of the study? How will you debrief them? Of course, how are you going to obtain informed consent? This also falls under procedures. Remember about ethics of research. You should also tell me how you're going to obtain informed consent. So basically, procedures of data collection is just step by step. How are you going to conduct this study? If you are planning a series of focus groups, interviews, how many people are going to be in each group? Where are the groups going to meet? In any specific location? During the group, how are you going to, is there going to be one moderator or more moderators? How are you going to encourage participants to participate, and so on and so forth. So for this section, refer again to a specific unit in which you learned about that research design, and look at what are the procedures for conducting such a study. Now, qualitative folks. So you are the people that are doing. Oh, so I messed it up. I was talking about quantitative all the time, but I gave some qualitative examples already. Oh well. Anyway, if you're planning a participant observation, an interview, or social text analysis study, then first of all, tell me again which of the methods you pick, just like in the previous one. And then a really important part of a qualitative paper is self-reflection. Does anybody remember what that is? Those of you who did block 3. Doesn't ring a bell? Self-reflection is basically providing a brief paragraph about yourself. Because in qualitative research, the researcher is the tool of analysis. You need to tell us how good of a tool, that sounds really bad, but you need to tell us how good of an instrument of research you are. So what makes you competent and prepared to do this study? Do you harbor any personal biases, maybe because of your background or your connection to the subject matter, that could affect your ability to conduct thorough analysis? So anything that is your strength or anything that is your weakness to conduct the study. So I have a student in the previous class a couple semesters ago. She designed this really cool study about heavy metal fans in Westchester. And she wrote in self-reflection, one of my strengths is that I myself am a heavy metal fan. And so I have a very deep inside understanding of the culture. So this is going to help me get to the right people and really understand what the people are saying during interviews. But she also said it could be a negative because she may not have the same perspective as somebody coming from outside, and she might not be able to see some things as interesting because she is part of this group on a daily basis. So this is an example of stuff that you put in self-reflection. And then again, your sample. And for qualitative research, typically you use non-probability sampling methods, so either purposive or convenience sampling or snowball sampling. And finally, once again, what are going to be the procedures of data collection? So if you're conducting interviews, for instance, how are you going to set up the interview? Where are they going to be conducted? How long are they going to be? And so on and so forth. If you are conducting participant observation, it's really important to tell me about the location of your observation, how you're going to maintain access to it throughout your participation, how long your participant observation is going to be, and so on and so forth. Any questions? Go ahead. Absolutely, yeah. something that I am really fascinated by, and my students in my media class are going to do this semester. They're going to be doing participant observation in Second Life. So, you know, you can create an avatar for yourself. Yeah, and go in and see. Yeah, absolutely. And you can do, you know, you can collect data in different ways. You can make video or screen recording, like I'm screen recording right now, of what's happening. Obviously, you can take notes as you're in there. Yes, absolutely. Good question. All right. Any questions? So let me quickly show you, just to make sure that everybody is on the same page, where to go to see the sample. And I think looking at the sample really helps. So if you click on right here, sample method section, this is under content assignments final paper. It's actually a Word file, so it's going to download to your computer. So bear with me for just a moment. Okay. And what you're going to see is this. This starts with a quantitative methods section. So look, it's pretty simple. It's not very long. It's about 1.5 pages long. But really be careful about what you put in there. Make sure that you address everything that I talked about, because you don't need a lot of words, but you do need to put in the right things. And I'm going to pay attention to whether you address all of these points that I talked about. Really follow my instructions. That's how you maximize your grade. And this is an example of an appendix, because this was a survey study. This person designed a questionnaire. So what I grade you on for this one, for this example, is I'm grading how well the student understands how to construct a good questionnaire. So you use your knowledge from the survey unit, how to write good questions, what are the pitfalls, things like double-barreled questions, like vague questions, vague instructions. Those will be the things that I'm going to grade the appendix on. Same thing goes for, this is qualitative, this is an interview protocol. So here you have a list of questions that you can ask, you want to ask in the interview. And I'm going to be grading you based on, you know, how well the questions are constructed. Do they help you get at the research question that you asked? And no, I don't have a limit on how many questions you should ask in either. You kind of need to see whether or not your questions in a protocol or a questionnaire capture what you are trying to find out. And that's what I'm going to be looking at. Clarity probably is one of the biggest things. What I don't have here is an example of what I was talking about, stimuli materials, but that's really for the folks, anybody who's going to be doing experiments, or if you want to see how people respond to an advertisement, a picture, an image, a movie clip, or whatever, then I want to see samples of that, what you're going to show in this appendix. But if you're not going to be showing people any such stuff, then obviously it doesn't have to go in the appendix. Any questions?